But I wasn't aware until recently about the success of the campaign against water rates in the Republic of Ireland. A campaign there actually made the government change its policy from charging people for water, which they hadn't been charged for before. I'm really, really pleased that we've got a speaker to talk about that campaign in Ireland that was so successful in 2014. Brendan Ogle is on the call. Brendan, how are you doing?
Morning, Crispin. I'm very good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I was really interested to hear about this water campaign in Ireland, because any successes we get over the people who try to exploit us are welcome as hopeful and giving us some kind of steer for what we can do here. Now, you were the coordinator of the Right to Water campaign and also a Unite official. Can you give us a background to why these water rates came in the first place, or why they tried to bring them in, and how this campaign was mobilized, how you mobilized people against it?
Yes. Well, as a result of the fiscal crash, Crispin, in 2008, Ireland, Southern Ireland I'm talking about here, lost its economic sovereignty. The IMF had to come in and there was a bailout. And as part of those conditions, our water and sanitation services, which were in public ownership, still are, thankfully, were to be teed up for privatization. That was a term and condition imposed upon us by the IMF in 2008, 2009. In 2010, interestingly, the United Nations decreed water as a human right, following some fantastic campaigning work by the water warrior Maud Barlow. So water was decreed by the United Nations as a human right in 2010. We were in a really economic mess at that time, and the Irish people the fighting Irish weren't fighting, I'm afraid. We were taking it on the chin. Massive immigration, massive unemployment, the seeds of what's now a homeless and housing emergency were sown. And around about 2014, they finally got around to putting in the hardware for their privatization plans. Just to say about water charges, we pay for our water, we pay for our sanitation, we always have done. It's called taxation. So we pay for those services through progressive general taxation, progressive at least in terms of the income aspect of taxation. You know, the corporation taxes and consumption taxes, not so progressive, of course. So anyway, they got the hardware, and I talk about the hardware of water privatization, Crispin. I'm talking about water meters. Water meters are what we call toll booths. They're toll booths on your human right to water. That's the phraseology, that's the lexicon, that's the campaigning, mantra is a word that some people would use, but it's really the Bible to us. Water meters are a toll booth on your human right to water. And when they started putting in the water meters, the resistance didn't come from unions and didn't come from political parties. A single woman in Cork, in a housing estate, went out one morning and stood on the shore outside her house and said, "You're not putting that in here." And we didn't allow them to install the water meter. I pay for enough, I'm not paying any more. So, word spread through social media. Within days, people in their own communities and even more in Dublin and incrementally around the country started protesting the installation of the water meters. At that stage, a number of unions got involved, Unite, which I work for, the Mandate, the Shop and Retail Workers Union, the Communications Workers Union. Those three unions, 3 or 4 out of 44 unions, so only a few. And the fractious sectarian political left in Ireland, were busy falling out with each other over European elections. So we tried to devise a campaign that people could unite around for once. And we devised it along very simple lines. One message, one demand. The message, water is a human right. The demand, that we abolish domestic water charges because we already paid for it by tax. And from then, Crispin, 2014, the Right to Water campaign, which was the umbrella campaign of all the local community campaigns, took off, and it never stopped until we won in 2018.
So I quite like this description of the left being fractured or fractious in Ireland, and then one campaign uniting them all. That seems to be something that I see quite a lot in this side of the water. Do you think that's something that we could learn from here?
Far be it from me to think that you could learn from the Irish left, Crispin, but certainly the Right to Water and the water charges campaign was a rare success. Since independence, and we're 100 years independent now, we have never had a left-wing government. We have only ever had governments which have been led by one of two Tory parties, Fianna Fáil or Fine Gael. We've never had a left-wing government. So the left is historically small. No, left people thinking isn't necessarily small. Progressive thinking isn't necessarily small. But in terms of political organization and parties, and certainly the coming together, it's small. So I think the key to winning this campaign was its simplicity. Right. The turning the demand into a human rights-based demand. And if water is a human right in Ireland, Crispin, water is a human right in Britain. And that connected with people. The idea that when a woman or a family or a parent goes to feed their children in the evening, that the water that comes out of the tap to prepare food depends on what's in the bank account is abhorrent to the concept of water as a human right. It's abhorrent. And that connected with people. People were losing jobs, were losing housing, family were emigrating, costs were going up, and people said that they're doing everything to us. They are not taking our water. And, you know, this concept of water being a lightning rod for fighting back working class activism didn't start in Ireland. You know, it happened in Bolivia with the Cochabamba water wars. We learned a lot from them. I've already spoken about Maud Barlow. We internationalized the campaign. From 2014 to 2016, we had 11 demonstrations. National demonstrations. There were thousands of local demonstrations. We had at 6 of those over 100,000 people. Now you're talking about a country here of 4.5 million, Crispin. This was the biggest and the longest campaign. The campaign was based around 3 pillars. We call them the 3 pillars: the trade union pillar, the community pillar, and the political pillar. And within that loose alliance, no decision by Right to Water could be made without the agreement of the 3 pillars, but other than by consensus. So that forced people to work together. And then when we had the demonstrations, the protests, we like to say we put the pro into protest. We had super stages, we had music, we had poetry, we had performing arts, we had dance. We didn't just have a list of people getting up making the same 3-minute speeches from 6 different political parties. They did have their place, right. But we made them family days out. People came with kids, people came with banners, the colour, the fun. They were fun days out. They were peaceful days out. And they really got people out and about and campaigning together, brought communities to life, really.
And did that change the political landscape, like the campaign? Do you think it's still there? You can still feel that people have united a bit more towards left ideas after that?
Well, certainly, look, the government that we then had was a coalition government of one of those Tory parties, Fine Gael, and Labour, the Irish Labour Party. And they imposed that coalition government the most vicious cuts on the working class of any government, I think, in the history of the state. They were absolutely vicious. They were implementing the IMF's agenda with gusto. So that was in 2011 when they came to power. By 2016, Labour, who had gone into that government with 37 seats, lost 30 of the 37 seats and went down to 7 seats. Fine Gael had gone in with 75 seats and they lost 25. So the government was wiped out. And what we did was we successfully, by community power brought about by that simple 3-pillar alliance, we got the political parties to commit that when 2016 came, domestic water charges would be abolished. And even those who supported domestic water charges ended up putting in their manifestos, Fianna Fáil, for example, that they would be abolished. So when we took down that government, and the water charges campaign did take down that government, when we took down that government, the incoming government, still a Tory government, the incoming government had to abolish water charges by popular consent. They had no option. didn't want to do it. They had no option. Now, has it led on? Unfortunately not. The water charges issue is gone, at least for now. The discussion now is putting the public ownership of water into our constitution, which is our final demand of the campaign. And we're very hopeful that that's going to happen in the next couple of years. We'll have a referendum on that. But unfortunately, the unity that the left were forced by the campaign model to come together in dissipated. To be honest with you, I think the small political parties hated it, decided that they weren't being lectured by trade unions and by communities anymore. And there hasn't been, the single model that won hasn't been repeated. And my God, do we need it repeated? We need it repeated on housing. We need it repeated on cost of living. We need it repeated on the public health system. We need it repeated on a whole range of issues. But unfortunately, that's not happened. So we had a great victory. It was like winning the Champions League. But as of now, Crispin, it's a one-off. But you know, the revolution continues. We keep pushing. We keep hoping.
Do you think it's like a wave that it will come back? That there's people who can kind of feel that campaign in their core, but they kind of let it go a bit. But when something hits the fan again, they'll be out in bigger force. Do you think people kind of go into a campaign and come out, and then maybe it can come back again?
Well, look at it. Certainly, we were facing the challenges as a working class in Ireland are facing the same challenges as yourselves. You know, the cost of living increases and the low wage economy, the tax exiles, and you know, Ireland is a tax haven, considered a tax haven by many, including me. So we've got huge problems. So I think we're entering into an era perhaps of, you know, maybe even social breakdown, whereby so many people are becoming disenfranchised from the political system and aren't gauging politically at all, even with their political allies, or those who should be their political allies. And you see that in Britain as well. You know, we're entering into a very different phase. You know, this aggressive phase of global and the neoliberal capitalism is really creating societal divides, which are really, really dangerous. So I think there are lessons to be taken from the three pillars: community, trade unions, and political left coming together. I think there are lessons to be taken from having a simple campaign. You know, there's so much we can fall out about. There's so much we can argue about. Nobody on the left, we're great at finding things to argue about. We're not so great at finding simple messaging, simple campaign studies, simple human rights-based beliefs that can bring the middle into the left and keep us united while we do so. And you know, as I said to you earlier, Crispin, water is a human right in Britain as well. And I would say to anybody watching this, I would say to my colleagues and comrades in the left in Britain, if you're looking for an issue to unite around in this cost of living crisis, you know, water could be the one. Those water meters are a toll booth on your human right to water. What are you doing paying water bills for something you already pay for out of your taxation? That might connect with people across the British Isles, well, across Britain and Northern Ireland, in a way that other issues might not. That was certainly our experience.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. Very clear and very interesting what you said. Can I also ask you a question? Have you written any books about this by any chance?
Well, there you go. I have written a book. It's not exact. It didn't exactly fly off the shelves. It's called From Bended Knee to a New Republic. I wrote it in a few years ago now, in 2017, I believe. And you know, I think the book not only captures the campaign, but it captures the campaign within the global neoliberal era that we now live in, and with the other issues. And I think what I really tried to point at in the book was how a single model of campaigning cut through all the divisions on the left, and brought people together. And it's a real regret for me that hasn't been built on in other campaigns. But it'd be great to see something similar happening on water in Britain. It'd be great to see water back in public ownership in Britain. And you know, as I say, the book points the signpost, Crispin, that might just be an issue that can unite leftists in Britain in a way that other issues, you know, haven't just done so at the moment.
Right. Now, thank you very much for coming on. I hope you can come on again. It's very interesting to talk to you, and I hope you have a good rest of the day.
Delighted, Crispin. Thank you.